Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of XeroTalk, and today I got with me the one, the only, Josh. Hey Josh,
Hey
Tenley
there,
J,
how's it
aka
going?
Tenley J, aka Josh.
Yeah, Tenley J, that's probably where you might have found me before, but you can also just go to any random YouTube channel, scroll down into the comments, and just Control F search "This is not a Gentoo video," and you will find me there too.
Of course, you and
It doesn't have to be tech-related content.
it just has to be Gentoo related.
No, it doesn't even have to be Gentoo related. It just has to be on YouTube.
True, true. And if people don't know, you also have something called distro hacking.
Yes, it's a weekly live stream I do, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every. I think I already said it's on Fridays, but yeah, every Friday when I actually remember what day of the week it is.
But but is it really hacking as in hacking or just breaking
It's
distros?
it's the old definition of hacking, where we do stupid things with software, because hacking does not necessarily mean computer intrusion or computer fraud or anything like that. Hacking is literally just grabbing source code, doing something random with it, maybe breaking something, maybe making something work.
Maybe
Because
making
you're just
something work.
hacking stuff together.
Oh, wow.
Usually the stream involves something not working right, and then we all get horribly disappointed when everything works flawlessly, which rarely ever happens.
Well, speaking of which, we had a younger version the other day of yourself. Uh, his username on my server was Brick Linux, by the way. Uh, I had to kick him off the server, giving him a warning that he's polluting. He comes back and he continues polluting. He completely ignores my warning. So I had no choice but to ban him. I don't usually ban anyone. The number of bans I have done since the creation of the Discord server was 2, and he was the third. Uh, he 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 bricked Linux distros like body counts. It was like he was leaving body counts behind him. Linux body counts is what I'm saying. Linux distro body counts. Every distro he installed, he bricked. 5 minutes in, like he wanted the Polish locale the other night. He couldn't get it because he was using Archcraft and I forgot which window manager. He couldn't find the keyboard file in etc default, so he modified grub. He thought that he had to change something in grub to add the Polish locale. That's how much he doesn't know about Linux. So he broke grub. That's with
I
Archcraft,
mean,
and
it's not hard to break Grub, but I don't know where he would look at Grub to set that, because you set that with your init system, not the bootloader.
exactly, and even funnier, and this is hilarious. He wanted to get rid of my of the default KDE wallpaper because he installed, I forgot, Pure Arch with KDE, and he didn't like the Breeze wallpaper. He uninstalled Breeze. He couldn't boot into the desktop because Breeze has hard dependencies in KDE. So
Yeah.
he uninstalled Breeze. He ignored all the warnings because Terminal gives you warnings that people tend to ignore these days. He ignored everything, removed it, and he lost the ability to boot into KDE. That's the
Well,
second body count in
the,
a span of 2 hours.
the funny thing is that that happens with KDE, especially when you're using an icon theme that isn't a full set, because the way KDE operates is that applications will literally refuse to launch if the expected icon is not
You
there.
get the
So
GPIO something error in terminal if you
yep.
run it via terminal.
Yeah, it'll shout and scream at you, GPIO, hey, I can't find this icon, therefore this
Yeah,
application is seg faulting.
yeah, it's seg faulting and it doesn't even launch.
Yep.
The third one he killed. He was trying to modify keyboard shortcuts or key bindings. He replaced something in Xinit, bricked it. And the body counts kept growing and growing and growing. And in that one day, he bricked like 5 or 6 installs. So it was like, hey, I know somebody like that. Except he does it only with 1 or 2 distros, not everything. So it's a younger version of yourself who was learning and messing around and learning.
He is definitely a younger version of myself because I've learned to look up documentation before I decide that I'm going to make system breaking changes.
Well, when you're young, your attention span is shorter than that. Documentation is something like, oh, I need to study. No, I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't read anything, and he kept piling up the brick distros. So in the end, I was like, and when he first installed XeroLinux, he was like, what is meld? What is NeoFetch? What is Jitsi? What is Flat Seal? What is this? What is that? What is this? I sat there because I'm the creator. I sat there answering a lot of his questions, and then at the end I was like, nobody's paying me nearly enough to sit here and describe what every package is. Number 1, you have the package description in the package manager. Number 2, you have Google. So Google. I'm like, dude, it's enough with all that. So I'm like, there are some users, and at the beginning he called himself. I use Arch, by the way. We had to fight him to change his username to Brick Linux, by the way. He agreed, and then I had to ban him because it was getting too much. There are users and there are users. He's not a user. When we told him, because he came from the Arch Linux server where he was banned because because he kept bricking Arch Linux over and over again. They were like, we can't help you, dude. You're a lost cause. So they banned him. I was like, yeah, he kind of reminds me of someone.
Oh,
So
if you check my Discord server, you can see where I was just about to pick a fight with a package maintainer for Arch Linux.
speaking of which, this is a small tangent, but speaking of packages on the AUR, there's a package called Nerd Font Gambus, which is a collection of nerd fonts in a single package. The maintainer of that package updated it. He broke it. I told him, fix it. You have to fix this line in PKG build. He didn't fix it exactly like I told him. He fixed it in a different way, which broke it even differently. I was like, dude, fix it. Add this line. Copy, paste in the PKG build. You know what he did? He stopped maintaining the package. He made me a co-maintainer. I'm like, huh? I don't know how to maintain packages on the AUR. What? I'm just telling you what to do, what to put the line to paste in the PKG build. He was like refusing to do it, and then he stopped. He didn't even update the package. I'm like, I'm done. The AUR is a great place for packages, but if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know how to check if a package is updated or not, you might be building a deprecated version of the package, because not all packages, old packages, are reported as deprecated or out of date. So you will have to study the PKG build and go to the GitHub, do a comparison thing. AUR is not for the lighthearted. You don't just build willy-nilly packages without knowing what you're doing, because I suffered a lot of issues because of that. So now I do, in due diligence, I check the PKG build with the GitHub upstream. I do the comparison. And for example, I use Ocean Audio on Matt's podcast. I love this application because when you open it, it notifies you there's a new version available because it checks on its against its own website, its own server. But the maintainer of the package on the AUR hasn't updated the PKG build for a year and a half. So whenever I get notified that there's a new version, I up the version number in the PKG build build it and host it on my repo. So
Yep.
please, people, don't trust the AUR for updated packages. If you want
No,
to
there's a reason why they call them AUR helpers and not package managers.
yeah, because they help you build the package, but they don't let you know if they're updated or not, and
Yep.
they're not all updated. Like I think it's more like 60-40. 40% are updated, 60 are just left there to rot. For up to the maintainer like myself, who maintains like around 500 packages from the AUR, to keep up to date with these things. That's why I mainly use Git packages, because on a monthly basis, I build every end of the month. I rebuild all the Git packages to make sure that they're the latest version, because they grab all the files from GitHub or their Git repositories. So latest commits, perfection. They don't need to be updated on the AUR, because whenever you run make pkg against the pkg build, the Git pkg build, it will always grab the latest code. So I prefer Git packages over anything, because the AUR maintainers don't update the packages. So yeah, it's a small tangent, but I had to mention it because a lot of people, they tend to install everything with Yay, even mainline packages from the mainline Arch repositories. But the AUR packages, they end up having older versions than the actual versions that exist, and that's causing issues.
Our personal
Like,
favorite is when when an AUR maintainer packages an older version of a package that's in the mainline repository, but they bump the version number to something sky high.
yeah,
So it overwrites the main package repository.
package in question, like one of the packages is FM6000.
Yeah.
FM6000 is like version 6000.
Yeah, and just a reminder, there is no moderation of AUR packages
No,
unless like
unfortunately,
thousands of people complain about the package. So
unfortunately,
yeah,
they need to
so
do that.
that's why stuff like this happens.
Like for example, I watched the entire 30-minute video by Matt when he was writing i3, configuring i3. Uh, he mentioned something about PyWall. I love that package, but it's intended for window managers more than it's intended for desktop environments. Still, PyWall is now unmaintained. That's why it left the extra repositories and is still on the AUR. Is back to the AUR, and if you check their GitHub repository, unmaintained, not archived yet, just unmaintained.
Yeah,
So
hasn't seen a commit in 2 years.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I still have it on my repository because according from what I've seen from Matt's videos, because he uses that thing a lot, it still works. When it starts breaking, oh, I just remembered something.
It's a Python 3 application, so it's gonna be around for a while.
Speaking of Python 3, Python 3 had a major version bump, like the 3.11.
Yep.
A lot of this time around, we were safe because not a lot of system applications broke, but a lot of userland applications broke that use Python, that depend on Python. Like what's it called? Not Krita, the other one. There's an image manipulation software, not GIMP, not Krita. Which one is it? I forgot. There's one of them that depended on
Image Magic.
No, it's like Inkscape. Inkscape.
Oh.
Inkscape uses Python. Depends on Python. I had a package that I maintained from the AUR for the new KDE version, which will be released in less than 3 hours. Will be live in less than 3 hours.
Yeah, I'm watching the website in the countdown right now. You may or may not be subject to this week's distro hacking. Just to let you know.
Okay, but it's the Capuchin cursors package. It's a humongous package. It's got like 300 megabytes worth or more, 600 megabytes worth of cursors. That's the biggest cursor package I've ever seen, because it's got mocha, latte, and iterations of each. No, but if you there's like 6 different iterations, but each one of those 6 iterations has rose water, purple, blah blah blah. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, I tried to build it on Gnome. It depends on Inkscape because that's how it parses the images for the SVGs for the cursor or whatever. It kept failing
Mm-hmm.
because Inkscape wasn't updated to the latest Python. I was like, okay, I need to build it on a system where I didn't update to the latest Python. I fire up my storage system. It's still not updated. I I built the package over there. It takes a while because of all the iterations of the freaking cursors. Uh, so it took like an hour to do that. Built the package, copied it over here, put it on my repo, pushed it, and everything was okay. As soon as I updated the storage system, I couldn't build that package anymore. But good news, Inkscape just got updated to use the latest Python.
All right.
So
Life of a
packages are
package
slow to get
maintainer.
in. Packages are slow to get in.
Yep.
But yeah, Python is whenever it gets a major upgrade, all hell breaks loose. Instead of, I don't understand. I'm gonna ask you this: do you agree with my analogy that they have to wait, they have to update Python on the back end, but not push it to the public, give it to all the developers to update their packages against the new version before pushing, so pushing all the packages that depend on Python with the new version of Python all at once, not
So,
update Python and let all the other
so
packages slowly upgrade?
here's the thing: is you're also using an Arch Linux based operating system,
Yeah, it's
where Arch
including
Linux
that.
says they're just going to throw packages at you.
Yeah.
Now, if you want actual quality testing, maybe you should look at Fedora.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe you should look at something like Solus. Maybe you should look at Void.
Speaking of which, Fedora, GNOME on Fedora and GNOME on XeroLinux. Uh, Gamer King brought it to my attention. Uh, Shout out to Gamer King because he pays attention to all details. He had that question because he likes these kind of things. Since you have used XeroLinux and Fedora, XeroG and Fedora, I
Yep.
feel that GNOME on XeroLinux is slightly better than GNOME on Fedora. My argument is, and I could be wrong, correct me if I am, is on Fedora they include all the GNOME packages as they are shipped by the GNOME people.
Yeah.
Whereas on XeroLinux, I pick and choose. So not everything is there. So do you think that's why my XeroG feels a little bit better, uses like 200 less megabytes of RAM than Fedora one? Because I don't know, I don't get it.
So the way that Gnome works is that Gnome is not only GPU accelerated now on Gnome 44 via the magic of the GTK4 toolset, but Gnome also loads as much of itself into system memory as possible. That's why you
Yeah.
always see a higher RAM usage with Gnome, because when things run out of memory, they theoretically run faster, but not always. Because Gnome's not exactly a light desktop environment. But at the same time, if you're having performance issues with GNOME, maybe your system needs to be a bit more modern because this ThinkPad that's like 6 years old runs it perfectly fine with an integrated GPU.
It
But
depends. So basically, it depends on what the distro includes from GNOME.
yeah,
Don't.
for the most part. But yeah, what the way that Fedora operates is that Fedora is like the distro that GNOME is developed on. The GNOME team is largely employed by Red Hat. They develop using Fedora
Mm.
because Fedora is upstream from Red Hat, so it kind of makes sense. But Fedora does not actually ship true vanilla GNOME. They make two changes to it
Hmm. What are the
because
changes?
by default the terminal uses a white theme for GNOME.
Oh, correct.
Yeah, and then let me pull up settings here. On the settings application here for GNOME, if it ever loads, there we go.
It's white. Oh, of course, because
Well, yeah,
yeah,
because I have,
Fedora.
I haven't actually set the theme on it. But if where is there it is. That logo right there, the Fedora logo.
Yeah.
There is no logo there on Vanilla Gnome. So this is actually a fork of the Gnome settings control panel.
Ah. Wait. There's no logo on Gnome. They don't put that foot
Nope.
on.
Vanilla Gnome does not actually have a logo there. If you see
It's
a logo in the about screen for Gnome, that's because somebody forked it and put a logo there.
like I have
Yep.
the XeroLinux logo on there, but yeah, Fedora ships the light theme by default. They should switch that. Anyway,
I mean, it's a button. You change it now.
yeah, I know. It's just in the drop down, but
It's not a
the
problem.
but yeah, the more of GNOME that you ship, the more it will sit in your memory. The heavier your system will feel, and it's not. We cannot show that in words. It's just users have to experience it to see that, because on Fedora GNOME, I tried Nobara, not exactly Fedora, but I tried Nobara Pure GNOME, not the modified version, the pure GNOME version. It felt heavier. It felt something was like opening windows was slower than opening them on XeroG. Now I understand why. Because everything is sitting in memory and
Well,
it uses.
it's already running in the memory itself. It's just
Yeah.
that it's just that now you actually have to wait for it to draw the window. That's realistically what you're waiting for. Whereas
Yeah.
distros like Nobara might ship a what they claim to be a vanilla GNOME, but it's not a vanilla GNOME
No,
because
it's not.
they're using the Ubuntu triple buffer patches to accelerate the performance of GNOME. Fedora doesn't ship that yet because that is still a pull request in GNOME. Now Fedora 45 or what well GNOME 45,
No,
which is
45.
shipping.
Yeah.
Yeah, GNOME 45 or GNOME 46, which
September.
is shipping in Fedora 39. I think we're on 38 right now.
Yeah.
So the next version of Fedora might have that. It's just that it's still a pull request that's open on the GNOME team to actually get those patches included.
Yeah. And I just discovered that open pull requests, anyone can pull them and merge them to their own repositories and use
Yep.
them. I didn't know that. I just discovered that yesterday. So I'm like, hey, cool. I can beat them to the punch.
Yeah.
Cool.
And
That's what.
that's what a lot of distros do because believe it or not, the GNOME team is not exactly quick to make changes to GNOME.
Correct.
Believe it or
Like
not.
there was a major bug with GNOME 44 that they just fixed with Nautilus. Basically, the contents of folders not refreshing whenever you deleted something or modified something. I had to keep mashing the F5 button to update the contents of the folders.
Yep.
It was a major bug upstream, and it was mentioned. And Arch only just pushed it, and I'm like, yay!
Well,
it took them long enough.
Arch is also famously slow to update GNOME as well.
No complaints there. I prefer that. I prefer
Yeah.
that because the longer they wait, the more stable GNOME gets, because GNOME always has issues, and the Fedora team waits until most major extensions get updated to work with the latest version of GNOME.
The Fedora team doesn't even wait for the extensions. They just you can watch Fedora project and they have a bug tracker that they just work through. And when that bug tracker hits no more bugs that are super critical, they push the release button. That's
Yeah.
how it works. They don't care about extensions. Because if Fedora cared about extensions, they would ship extensions built into GNOME, but they don't.
Well, XeroG ships with 11 or 12 extensions out of the box.
Yeah, that's 11 or 12 too many.
Exactly. But I had
GNOME is best GNOME.
stock GNOME is best GNOME, but if I did that, then there's nothing special about XeroLinux. And the ones I chose were ones that don't break the system if they stop working. So it's dash to dock, blur my shell, stuff like that. No, it doesn't break the system if they stop working. And those are very updated quickly. They're really fast to update those extensions. There's only one extension that I included that is very slow to update. Is the one you told me about. Git Nautilus icons. Oh yeah, that you have to tell the creator of this extension. Oh, by the way, GNOME got updated to a major new release. Oh, only then will he wake up and
I mean,
update
it's
it.
probably because he's not using these upstream distros.
Maybe not, but for me, this is a necessity because I'm a visual person and I need to
Mhm.
see which packages have been synced to the repos and which didn't. But good thing we're using Linux because there's always a solution to a problem. Go to Windows, ain't no solution for any of the problems.
No, I think your only choices on Windows is to use a proper Git client rather than a plugin.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I wanted to ask you a question. I want to get to the serious side to Josh, because everybody knows the Josh, the Gentoo guy, but I know there's a serious part to you. You keep sucking in knowledge that you keep remembering, and that's not an easy task. Like you do research, you remember most of it. Very few people remember all of it, but you remember most of it. Like we joke around a lot on Matt's podcast, but I noticed that whenever any of us mention an issue, you always come up with a solution.
Yep.
You remember a solution that you read somewhere at some point, but it's all stored in your head. Do you have a hard drive in your head? How many terabytes is it, and how do you do it?
My knowledge base as of right now is about 18 gigabytes in written text. Uh, I secretly save everything as an Emacs org document.
Wait, doesn't
No, not
DT do
really.
that?
No, no,
Doesn't
no.
DT do that?
No, I've been doing it much longer than him. But I do have an 18 gigabyte single page org document for Emacs that is just my Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
Yeah, but seriously, dude, you're awesome
Yeah.
when we talk about stuff.
Okay, so a lot of these utilities and stuff that I just like randomly know the name of is because I either have a practical use for a lot of them, or I've been using Linux since 2008, and I've been spending that many years Googling things.
Yeah, but I'm gonna speak about my case. I'm like Eric Dubois from AkA Linux. I tend to search for a fix, apply it, and completely forget it exists. And when somebody mentions the issue again, like 6 months down the line, or 3 to 6 months down the line, I don't remember that thing. I have to Google again.
Hmm.
I don't store anything. Whereas you are different. You are special, dude. You remember stuff. You got a good
Uh,
memory for stuff like that.
yeah. Uh, it also happens that I have a handy Rofies script where if I hit Super Shift S, it immediately fires up a Google search prompt.
Well, yeah, okay, we all do that, but still, sometimes you go in such detail that not even
Yeah.
Google provides that.
Well,
Like,
it's also just like been years of messing around with distributions. Like Gentoo in this case. You mentioned that there's a guy that likes to break distros. Or
yeah,
well, I don't know if he likes it, but he breaks distros.
yeah, but he
I
doesn't.
used
It's
Yeah,
one in one ear, out the other.
yeah, I used to be that guy, and then I went to Linux conferences and Linux hack user groups because those were popular back in the day, and I was one of those guys towards this guy that you may or may not know the name of. His name being Lennart Pottering.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and uh, I was a changed man after his conversation with me, because I was still young at the
Who
time.
wouldn't
So
be? Who
he
wouldn't be?
he
Who wouldn't be?
I was still a young lad at the time here. I wasn't nearly as balding as I am now. Which, by the way, I do have more hair than DT. DT is in fact bald. But anyways, after this conversation with him, because I was just like, I don't see the point of like this pulse audio thing. It looks like hot garbage to me. He's like, oh, you'd rather use OSS still. I see how it is, and he started just going into details about every single problem that he had with OSS. And then he
Oh,
started going into details of everybody that complained about pulse audio. And then he started going into details about how every single distro that said that they were going to package pulse audio, he explicitly sent them an email saying, don't package pulse audio. Because I
oh.
was there. at the pulse audio transition.
and still a lot of distros still ship pulse audio. And
it's fine these days to ship pulse audio, but when it first came out, they were doing the exact same thing that they were doing with Pipewire, where they were shipping it way too early.
well,
That said, a lot of the distros that did decide to ship Pipewire, they did a little bit smarter this time around. Whereas Fedora, obviously, they decided that they're going to be leading edge, so it makes sense for Fedora to switch to Pipewire before everybody else. But and then Ubuntu did a Pipewire change in a point release rather than the LTS, because when it comes to Ubuntu, the only release that matters is the LTS release. So
yeah.
of course they're going to spend like a 6-month trial on Pipewire and go like, hey, is this thing working? Cool. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, they just disable it and go back to Pulse Audio.
Well, here's where my question comes in. Some people say that it is possible to switch to Pulse Audio once on a distro that ships only Pipewire without any issues. Do you agree or disagree, and why? Because I disagree on my end. Since I'm a distro maintainer, I disagree because there will always be stuff left behind from one or the other that's gonna conflict, that's gonna cause issues. So the only best way to do that is for a distro, for example, to have a version that ships Pulse and another version that ships Pipewire if they wanted, if they had only one version, one ISO. So split that ISO into two. Better.
If you want to roll a Pipewire system to Pulse Audio for your audio stack, for one thing, you're already giving up on Wayland, which I know that you ship Wayland disabled out of the box for several concerns that you have with it, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but of course I'm going to hit that enable Wayland button.
But yeah, there is.
Anyways, rolling the system away from Pipewire to Pulse Audio is actually surprisingly easy, because all you have to do is just mask Pipewire, Pipewire Pulse, and WirePlumber. Just systemctl mask. That's all you have to do.
Yeah. Effectively, that works, but there's always a potential risk at some point.
That said, there does come the issue of where some distros will actually build Pulse Audio without daemon support. Which, if you don't know how that works, the way that Pulse Audio works is Pulse Audio is a direct interface to ALSA, which ALSA is the actual sound library that the kernel uses to make sounds. All it is just it's a thing that sits in front of another thing. That's all it does.
Correct.
Pipewire does the exact same thing, but in a bit more of a unique kind of case. But the way that applications that request Pulse Audio to interact, so like say Discord, for example, which is what we're using for this call, when Discord launches, it's going to look for the Pulse socket, which the Pulse socket is the Pulse daemon, the Pulse Audio daemon, or otherwise known as the Pulse Audio server, because we're on Linux, everything is a server as well as a client.
Yeah.
So when you mask Pulse Audio, or say you build Pulse Audio without the socket support, there is nothing there to actually answer the call. Now, when the Pipewire Pulse binary is running, the Pipewire Pulse binary will actually act as that server.
Yeah, and a handoff kind of thing.
Yeah. That said, not every single distribution is hard disabling Pulse Audio. Even Fedora doesn't hard disable Pulse Audio. In fact, the only distro that I've found where you can actually hard disable Pulse Audio that I found is Gentoo, and it's a use flag. You just minus daemon on Pulse Audio. But it is possible to do that.
It is.
That said, it just accept it and just use Pipewire. If you turn your computer on, speakers work, it's fine. Yes, sometimes when you turn your computer on, you might need to reset your sound devices. You're probably doing that with Pulse Audio too.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of users on my server that say, I never had issues with Pulse Audio. I hate Pipewire. I'm like, you either are running Pipewire on old hardware, or some weird proprietary audio devices,
It doesn't even matter because Pipewire doesn't care.
Well, I tell them that,
Yeah.
but they keep having issues with Pipewire, like I mentioned earlier, with the USB device. When there was an issue on XeroLinux where I shipped a meta package for Pipewire with a missing package, lib Pipewire, which caused USB headsets, not for the USB iBus thing for Pipewire wasn't being started. So I had to include that, and it's all fixed in the releases. But Pipewire has a lot of issues, but Pulse has issues as well with more modern hardware, where there's static noise on Bluetooth headsets and
Yep.
especially 2.5 gigahertz ones. So they both have their own sets of issues. The way I include Pipewire on XeroLinux is it's a meta package with all the Pipewire packages included in it,
Yeah,
and I
it's
set
Pipewire dash support.
yeah, it has and I set it to conflict with all the Pulse alternatives, and I have Pulse audio support meta package which installs Pulse and conflicts with Pipewire. But I haven't updated the Pulse audio package, so I don't use it anymore on any of my distros. And I tried to interchange both with a script that disabled the Pulse audio service and socket, whatever, and then installed and enabled the Pipewire one. It still had issues for some users, so I gave up. So I now ship only Pipewire, and if they have issues, I tell them go to a distro with that
Yeah,
ships
just tell them to
Pulse.
switch. Just tell them to switch to Debian.
Go Debian still
Yeah.
use Pulse.
Yep, Debian still uses Pulse Audio.
On the other hand, Ubuntu moved to
But
Pipewire.
then again, Debian is also still shipping GNOME 3.38 on stable.
What?
Yeah,
They're that old?
It's GNOME 3.38.
And I thought
It's Plasma 5.20 if it helps any.
Yeah, when I installed the KDE spin of Debian, I'm like, excuse me? Plasma 5.20? We're at Plasma 6 and they're still on 5.20?
Yep. Well, Debian Bullseye released 2 years and 6 months ago. With a package freeze 6 months before that. So you're using software that was released three years ago, but are
Good.
still getting modern security updates. So
This
technically,
summer's
it's not
yeah.
not in
I
security.
heard the little birdie told me that this summer Debian 12 will be released.
Yeah. The tentative release date is June 10th.
This month.
Next month.
Next month. Sorry.
June 10th.
June 10th. Next month. Okay. And I think they will be shipping Plasma 5.25. I think
It'll be 5.27.
27.
Yep, 5.27. They
it's gonna be
released
the
it just in time for the merge window.
27, but the 27.0, not 27.5, not
Yeah,
the
it'll be
fifth.
27.0 with maybe some back patches from 27.5 backported to it.
So there will be the Flatpak permission thing in the setting.
I don't know if you'll get the Flatpak permissions. You might get everything else.
Yeah, the Flatpak permission because there's an issue on Debian and it's the Flatpaks.
Mhm.
Yeah. Speaking of Flatpaks, dude, I swear by them, but I hate them as well. There's a love-hate
There are plenty of reasons to hate Flatpaks.
The main one being the size. The main one being the size for people like me with bad connection.
Yeah, some Flatpaks are huge. Not gonna lie about that because dependencies and all that. Basically, yeah. But at the same time, it is a flaw of the technology, and as a result, it is a non-issue for Flatpak.
Well, here's the thing. People are under the assumption, because the way a lot of YouTubers explain Flatpaks is they're containerized packages with all the dependencies within the container. Well, that is true and untrue at the same time. They might have all the main dependencies bundled in the container, but there's other dependencies that come with it, just like mainline packages on Arch, with the exception being that those dependencies come with their own dependencies bottled inside them, so it makes less packages to install,
Yep.
but not completely. It doesn't completely get rid of the dependency thing. It's just that they don't break. It's very hard to break a Flatpak. I have rarely had a Flatpak break, with the exception of a couple like WebCord, because it's WebCord and Discord.
Yeah, all Discord has to do is just update an API call and they break web code.
Yeah.
But the biggest flaw with Flatpaks is of course the package size, and then another flaw is sometimes Flatpak package maintainers don't necessarily list all their permissions properly. So then you have
That
to use a tool like FlatSeal and fix it for them.
yeah.
That's
Well,
a frustration, I tell you.
that's a big frustration with me and Matt, because either rely on a tool, ship with 0 permissions, and let the user select and opt into permissions, or have a guideline where all the packages ship with the same permissions. Not
Yeah.
this package ships with those permissions, that package ships with those permissions. Now I understand on the back end why they decide to ship each package with different permissions. Because, for example, OBS ships with only the permissions that it needs to function, to launch.
OBS is a good example of a Flatpak with permissions done right.
Correct. So other packages they ship with okay, either all permissions turned on, or all permissions turned off, or just the wrong permissions turned on. Like WebCord, for example. I'll tell you why WebCord frustrates the hell out of me as a Flatpak. You cannot, when you copy something like an image, a text, whatever, from a browser or wherever, and you want to paste it, use the right click to paste, it doesn't give you anything. It gives you inspect element because it's a web app using Electron in the back end. So you right click, you get inspect element. You don't get the paste.
Mm-hmm.
So, and even if you give it all the permissions to your system, to your folders, whatever, to your clipboard, anything, still the thing will not show. So you have to always use Control V, Control V, Control V. I'm like, they don't. This is a good example of permissions done wrong. So Flatpak and permissions, and sometimes even if you give it certain permissions, specifically when it comes to webcams and microphones, like WebCord keeps giving me this red bar on top that it can't hear me, although it clearly can, because we're having this conversation.
Yep.
But it keeps giving me this. The only way to fix it is to set the microphone as a fallback device. What the hell?
Ultimately, that's one of the reasons why I just don't use WebCord anymore. I
have to. I have no choice, because it's the only version of Discord that actually connects the calls on this ISP. On the other ISP, WebCord doesn't connect, but Discord does. Because each connects to separate sockets, I guess. It has a list of sockets it connects to. Ports. Sorry, ports.
I guess it could also just be like ISP filtering rules that done wrong, because believe it or not, ISPs have complete access to a firewall, and they will abuse their firewall.
Especially black market ISPs.
Yep.
Which don't get from the actual distributor, but they get from different countries all across the pond. Yep. But yeah.
I mean, my ISP actually for a while there blocked BitTorrent traffic.
Well, that's understandable. It's torrents.
Yeah,
but,
and then you run into this guy who legitimately seeds torrents for Linux distros, and I'm trying to contribute with some seeding here. Come on.
Yeah, I tried seeding here, but they don't block torrents. They just don't work. Seeding doesn't work over here.
Yeah. That said, BitTorrent is still like one of the better ways for me to like actually download something, because rural internet connection in the middle of nowhere in America. sometimes it's a little unstable, so the HTTP download just outright fails. So
I we're in the same
there, yeah, there's a reason
same
why I
boat.
have a Linode VPS, where it's just like I use the Linode VPS to get the thing I want to download, and then I rsync it back home.
I want to use Linode. I really want to use Linode. I hope Linode sponsors me at some point and gives me lifetime access to their thing the way it does for the big YouTubers out
Yeah,
there. But I don't think I'll be ever big enough to get that.
get some build infrastructure going for you.
Oh, dude, I tried Linode and I had Nextcloud. And listen, Linode is one of those unicorns out there that it's not a 100% perfect service. It has its flaws, but for what it does, it's pretty good. I used Nextcloud, and Nextcloud was working flawless, and it was always up to date. I didn't have to worry about anything. Everything was updated automatically for me. I didn't have to worry about anything. And when you want to use it as your own TTY based install of Linux, whatever distro your heart desires, you can do that. People were telling me build XeroLinux on Linode. I was like, yeah, but that would cost me a lot of money because I have to get the highest CPU count to be able to build in less time. If I got the $5 one, I would build XeroLinux in 6 hours.
Well,
So,
thankfully that high tiered one you're paying by the hour, so you don't have to have it full time.
well, still, if I wanted to use it the way
Yeah.
I wanted to, it was beyond 24/7.
Yeah.
But
But at the same time, it's also a server. How often do you
yeah,
actually build an ISO? Once a month? Yeah, that's not a
once every
problem.
3 months. Once every
Yeah,
three
so
months.
it's not a problem then. Just use it to like build your packages on your monthly schedule, and then just automatically commit them to your repository.
I wish I was advanced enough to know how to do that. But Linode is an amazing service, and for people like me who relies on other tools, a lot of other tools, Nextcloud is the best thing to rely on because it has everything. It's got like audio recorders, calendars, contacts, and I know people
You can
will
get VS Code running in Nextcloud if you really
yeah,
need to.
it's so flexible. Uh, but I know people are going to tell me, "Hey, for privacy reasons, why should we sync our contacts to someone else? So we're replacing Google with somebody else." Well, I beg to differ because Nextcloud you have full control over,
Well,
whereas Google you don't.
all Linode ships you is they ship you a virtual machine.
You do
They
whatever
don't.
you. It's
Yeah,
like your own computer on the
yeah.
cloud.
They don't care what you're doing with the virtual machine. Well, they kind of care as
Yeah,
long as
you
you're
don't
not
use it
doing
for
anything illegal.
piracy.
But if you're just using it to like host your Nextcloud and sync contacts and maybe share a file with a friend every now and then, not a problem because Linode is an American company and Section 230 is still a thing. So whatever's on
Yeah,
that Linode server,
stays
Linode
on
can't get
it.
in trouble for it. So why would they care? And
Exactly.
if it really did matter for you, just encrypt the file.
Well, and here's my argument to that. It's your server. You can turn it off. Nobody has access to a machine that's turned off now, do they? That's what I
Yeah,
did when I had Linode. I turned it off when I didn't need it. So my Nextcloud was only accessible when I turned it on for the few minutes that I needed it for, and synced my pictures, turned it off, went about my day. Nobody could access that. And plus, it's an image. It's a virtual machine
yep.
image. So
And
it's not even
you can download that image and you can fire up a KVM on your on your Linux computer at home, and
and
it'll
launch
boot
it.
right up.
Exactly. They give you the option to download it. So Linode is amazing. I really, really want to use it, but I cannot afford it because the one I really want is the $35 or $50 one, $50 a month one, because it's got all the space I need. It's got all the cores I need.
Yep.
It's got everything I need, but I cannot afford $50 a month thing because
I mean,
multiply that by 12 months. Bye bye.
I think GitHub Actions also supports the Arch install scripts too, which that's
Yeah,
really what you use
someone
to generate the ISO.
yeah,
So
somebody tried to do it for me, but it was generating a well, my ISO is 2.8 gigs. It doesn't have anywhere to host it on GitHub. I have to connect it to either
Yeah,
SourceForge or whatever to upload.
so it's too big for a tagged release.
Yeah, they only
Rough.
support 2 gigs.
That's
Exactly.
rough.
I'm 800 megabytes over, so they're like failed, or I need to configure it to push to SourceForge directly. I don't know how to do that, so it's too complex for me. I'm like, just build it and upload it. I have a good internet connection, so it's not a problem. But yeah, I sorry, I went on a Linode tangent here, but
It's fine. We love Linode here.
yeah, Linode is the best thing ever.
Linode has never done anything bad. Even when they get even when they get bought out by Akamai, that's still not technically a bad thing.
No, it's not like Microsoft purchasing something.
No, it's definitely not. Is because Akamai had no offerings in cloud before, and they were just buying their way into the cloud. There's not a problem with that.
Exactly. Uh,
It's
uh, so, I want to talk about the kernel, the latest kernel 6.3.2. It caused a lot of issues for a lot of people recently, especially NVIDIA users. Since you are an Intel Arc GPU user, did you
it's
get
working perfectly fine for me.
well because it started working because it requires a minimum of kernel 6.2 to work actually.
Yeah. Well, I can get it to work on 6.1. That doesn't mean that
Well,
everything else wants to work.
exactly. But I'll tell you my case. I have 2 desktops here, my HD PC and my storage PC that have legacy NVIDIA drivers, NVIDIA GPUs. The storage PC has a GT710 that barely works. That thing is shit. It's those small GPUs that have that require nothing. I updated it. It uses NVIDIA drivers versions 470XX. Updated those drivers, updated to the latest kernel 6.3.1 at the time. Today we had 6.3.2. Black screen, dead in the water. Why? Because the 470XX drivers weren't updated, patched against kernel 6.3.x. So I was using the 470XX with the 6.2 kernel patches, not the 6.3 ones. So I ended up having to install the LTS kernel until they got patched. And by the way, I'm using the TKG version of the NVIDIA drivers, not the AUR ones. So I had to wait for TKG to update, to patch them. They didn't. It took so long. I then went to their servers and started nagging. You need to update your script with the latest 470XX drivers. TKG, after 2 hours of nagging, TKG appears. He says, updated the drivers. You can install them now. So it takes a
Let's
lot
see
of
here.
nagging.
Let's see. I think I already found it.
It's on their GitHub. It's
Yep.
one of the commits. So he pushed the update. I was on Discord with them at 3 a.m. trying to get them to update the freaking drivers. I'm like, dudes, you maintain a freaking script that where users expect all the drivers they built with it to work. You haven't patched the 470XX drivers yet, and those are not very old. They're just previous gen. Then I made the decision to no longer support their script in my tool. I was like, basta. If I include that script, number one, most of my users are beginners. So I don't know what the heck they're doing on an Arch-based distro to begin with. But anyway, they see it looking good. They jump on board. I guess I look very good. But if they run that script, it's going to ask them questions that they have no clue how to answer. So I'm like, yeah, I don't need to include that script. So I decided to just support the latest drivers plus 470XX because I use them. I need them. And host them on my own repositories. I told the users, you have anything older, any GPU that uses drivers older than 470XX, you're on your own. You have to go. You have Google at your fingertips, and I told them what to Google in the tool. It says Google TKG NVIDIA-all. You will get their script and you'll be able to build whatever driver you want, but you're on your own. I don't support those. Although I'm using the TKG drivers on my repo, but I know which ones I'm building and when to build them. So I told them, Google those and check if they are updated. And I don't think the TKG people are going to update 390 and 340. Maybe 390, but 340 and 3 whatever and anything previous to that, I don't think they will update them to.
No, probably not. Like when it comes down to that, that's about the
I
the
think
time that you're probably gonna have to self-maintain or literally just download the driver from NVIDIA's website and just // the installer.
Yeah, and no, but wait, the NVIDIA from NVIDIA, the older versions like 340 and whatever, they get patched against new kernel.
So what they do is they build a DKMS module that assigns itself to your current running kernel.
Yeah, I know. I use it to DKMS drivers. Yeah.
That said, you are 100% on your own if there's an issue because
Yeah.
nobody will support you.
Exactly. But like the 340 drivers, I don't think they to install those you will need the LTS kernel and to stick to the LTS kernel.
Yeah. Honestly, if you're gaming on NVIDIA, there is no reason for you to not use an LTS kernel.
I was using the TKG kernel for a long time until it completely broke.
Yeah. It's just that you're not really getting any performance benefits because you're not using Mesa. You're not using the Vulkan implementation.
Yeah, but
because the NVIDIA driver includes everything.
So basically, NVIDIA, if you're on NVIDIA, get ready to get wrecked at some point.
Yeah.
With an update.
And honestly, that's just because a lot of NVIDIA package maintainers, they signed against the current kernel, and then Arch Linux being Arch Linux, they're going to package the latest and greatest kernel because it's Arch Linux, so they just throw packages at you. And sometimes that package maintainer for NVIDIA doesn't sign their kernel in time or sign their driver in time, which for some stupid reason NVIDIA requires that you sign the kernel specific or sign the DKMS package to the specific kernel. That's why you just use the LTS kernel.
Yeah, it's everyone who's watching this, if you're running anything older than 470XX, stick to the LTS kernel and stay safe.
Yeah, just live with it.
Live with it. You cannot use the latest kernel, so what?
Oh, boo-hoo, your BTRFS rate isn't getting the 20% performance boost that it would have gotten between 5 or 6.1 and 6.3. You're probably not using BTRFS anyway.
Speaking of BTRFS, in my tool for all BTRFS users, out there, there's a neat little option called initialize snapper in my tool. That doesn't only initialize snapper, it installs everything from BTRFS assistant, all that you need for snapper to manage
it. Snapper, it configures it, installs grub BTRFS, it installs BTRFS assistant. Does it also install the Pacman plugin too?
No, it doesn't install the grub stuff. The grub stuff is specific to timeshift BTRFS package.
Grub BTRFS doesn't. It supports both snapper and timeshift.
Let me. You are making me question myself. Let me see. Zero welcome. Script. Init snapper. I'll tell you what it's using. It's installing BTRFS Assistant, BTRFS-DU, disk usage, Snapper support, and BTRFS maintenance. Now, Snapper support is a meta package. Let me check what the meta package installs.
Probably installs Snapper and configures it.
BTRFS. No, it's the Snapper support. Oh yeah, Snapper support is a meta package. It installs grub.rfs. Oh yeah, it does install grub.rfs and grub.rfs snapper
All right. All right.
and enables the service. Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it installs all these things and sets them up all automatically for you. All you have to do is from now here on in, and it initializes it activates the home and the root configs, all that, and all you have to do is start messing with the ButterFS assistant to create snapshots and whatever automatic
Yeah, and
snapshots and
if it's also installing GrowButterFS as well as the snapper package for it, then every time you use Pacman to make a transactional
it
update,
creates
it'll
a
create a snapshot of your root file system. Of which
exactly.
then, if Arch Linux does a thing and it breaks your system,
You can
then
roll
you just
back.
reboot your system, go into the advanced options while you're still in Grub, and right there's your previous snapshot, and you can boot right back
Exactly.
into your system.
So all that is done for you. I wrote that script with ChatGPT. Um,
Yep, and then I remember that script not working because it never checked to see if the file system was ButterFS or actually I think it just never installed Snapper.
oh no, that was prior to ChatGPT. After, because you told me that,
Yeah.
after you told me that it wasn't working the way I had it, I was like, I don't know how to do it. Hello, ChatGPT, can you do it for me? And it did it for me. Now it welcomes the user by username. It says,
Mm-hmm.
like, for example, me, it's Tech0 on my system. It says, hi, Tech0. What do you want to do today? And it has the options. First, it will not show that. It will first check if your system is using the ButterFS. If it's not, it will tell you, sorry, can't do shit. Bye bye.
Sorry,
Uh,
not a ButterFS file system. See you later. Installs timeshift.
yeah. So, and if it is ButterFS, it says hi by username, and then it gives you all the options, and then you select the option you want, and you're done. So, people, because I had a lot of people come to me, they were like, I wish you included this and that for Snapper and ButterFS. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, it's right there in the tool. Just click the button. Just click the button. Just click it. It's right there.
I mean, ButterFS is not the default system of XeroLinux.
Well, yeah.
Until the day where it happens, where I convince Steve to use ButterFS as the
I
default file
did at
system,
some point. At some point, I did use ButterFS as the default, but I'm like,
I don't know how
there's
this thing works.
I don't use that thing, and it's too complex for me. People, people think that I know a lot, like you do. I haven't been around Linux long enough, and I don't retain a lot of information because I'm scatterbrained. I don't retain a lot of things, so I cannot rely on myself to remember everything. So the simpler it is, the better. That's why I set the simplest file system as a default, the best one, XFS, because the ext4 is really slow. Uh, tends to be slow, not is. It tends to be slower than XFS for large files. So I'm like, and apparently ext4 is good for older hardware like spinning Rust than XFS is. XFS does things that are is better for SSDs apparently, but
Uh, in
that's what
every
people say,
benchmark,
telling me.
in every benchmark that I've seen, XFS is not really that much faster than the ext4. And then,
For it depends on the types of
yeah,
files. For large files, it is fast,
yeah,
but
large,
for multiple small files,
yeah.
ext4 tends to.
Well,
But
it
the
also
pro,
comes down to like the use cases too. XFS has always been a very enterprise centric file system.
yeah, and
And
it uses less CPU overhead when copying a lot of files versus
yep,
ext4. ext4 uses a lot of CPU to copy files, especially over network. If you're copying
yeah,
files over network, if you
and
have ext4, 100% pegged.
yeah. That said, they're not doing anything fancy with the file systems. What the as complicated as they both get is they just do journaling.
Yeah,
The XFS journal assumes that you're using a 512 megabit block size, whereas
yeah,
ext4 it generates all the inodes across your device, and then that's what you have.
yeah. So okay. That to me was a little bit too technical. I will not remember that tomorrow.
Oh, all right.
All I know is XFS is much faster on my system, on my specific system, than ext4, and BTRFS. I don't do all that shenanigans, and I can use BTRFS without using all the snapper shenanigans and whatnot. But the sub volumes and things that it creates, it messes up things for me
Yeah.
at least. So I use the simplest one of them all. It's XFS. It works. Never had any issues with it. So I stick with it. Stick to what works, people. If you don't have any issues, and I hate the fact that okay, a user comes and tells and shares his config. I'm using Pop OS on this config. What gives the other people the right to make fun of that person? He's using what works for him. Why make fun of that person? If you have gripes with Pop on your hardware, it doesn't mean that it should behave the same on other people's hardware. So stop making fun of other people using something that doesn't work for you. So this hate thing is growing and growing and growing and growing in the Linux sphere. It's becoming. I'm no longer surprised why not more people come to Linux. I'm not surprised. Honestly, it's a mess up there. It's a mess. Like if I weren't a distro maintainer, I would go back to Windows in a heartbeat, because when you ask for help, either you're let down or not responded to or made fun of. So why? I don't get it.
It's really
You
just what the internet culture has become, because it was back in the day where it's just like the
It's full
Linux
of
community.
trolls. It's
Yeah,
full of
it's just
trolls.
like it's really gotten super prevalent in like the past 6 or so years that's really started to become an issue.
Yeah,
Because
and
and I can just about trace it to the rise of Arch Linux, believe it
well,
or not.
w- well, the Arch Linux community is not the best community out there, uh, but we as content creators, did you notice lately a lot of us content creators tend to put the or make the number of positive notes uh, right up top and in front and in bold in front of people. The headline topics being all positive, and then the negatives we put them in the very small category that we talk at the
It,
end of the video.
this depends on who you're talking to, because when I do a distro review, I'm
No,
not
it's
allowed to
different.
say good. I'm not allowed to say good things about the distro.
Well, there are the few that, yeah, they want to talk about the bad first, and then
Yeah,
like there's Matt.
there's a yeah. Matt says what's off the top of his head. His videos are really kind of just off the cuff,
Yeah,
which
I love that about his videos.
yeah, it's a
Uh,
very raw take, and it's kind of appreciative.
yeah, but the sponsored, I'm talking about the sponsored YouTubers out there, they because they want to help Linux. I'm not saying they're doing bad. They just want to help Linux. They want to put the good stuff first, the bad stuff last, because they want to get more people to use Linux. But even if we this I consider that a lie. Why lie to people? Or let's say not say lie. Why not give the full picture? Like
Hmm.
you might encounter this kind of hatred and trolls and stuff. There's a lot of it expected. That's why in my installer and my grub menus now it says where self-reliance is king. Learning is the norm, and self-reliance is king. Because if you don't learn enough to become self-reliant, if you keep relying on others, it's gonna reach a point where you're gonna give up and go back to something where nobody tells you nothing. So please, people, if you want to use Linux, learn for the purpose of learning, because relying on others is not the way to go. Trust me. I try to. I do rely on people. I rely on a web developer, but that's not a Linux person. That's a web developer. I don't rely on people in the Linux sphere Well, I do rely on two developers, but they're teaching me, so I don't have to rely on them, and I'm learning, so I don't have to rely on them. But still, reliance, you will always rely on other people at the beginning, but do it for the purpose of learning and to stop relying on those people in order for you to have a happy Linux experience.
It's also highly dependent on like what kind of Linux do you want to learn. Like, do you want to learn the
Yeah,
Linux terminal for the sake of learning the Linux terminal, or do you just want to fire up a web browser and check your email,
yeah, exactly. No, I'm
watch a
saying
YouTube
for
video? Yeah.
if you want to I'm talking about solving your own issues. You don't have to rely on anyone else to solve your issues.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to rely on yourself to solve your own issues. To know where to look, what to do, and how to do things. Understand how to compile a package in case the one you're using is faulty. Stuff like that. Solve your own issues on your own because, for example, like me as a distro maintainer, I cannot solve people's issues even though I'm a distro maintainer because I don't own their hardware.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to learn how to fix their own issues on their own hardware, or else relying on people who don't have their hardware is wrong because you're going to get the wrong solutions that don't work on your specific hardware. So yeah, this needs to I'm an advocate for Linux now, and I want people to use Linux. I'm not going back to Windows ever again. I just keep it around as dual boot because there will be those niche once every 100 years scenarios where I will need to boot into Windows instead of having to install it in a VM or install it. It's already installed. Just boot it. I don't update it even. I haven't updated it in like 9 months. So it's fine to have Windows installed for those kind of edge cases, but I want people to use Linux because it's flexible. It's the most flexible operating system you can ever use, and you can shape it. You can do whatever you want with it. It's not like Windows. You're forced with one look and one look only. So you use Linux, people, but with a purpose of learning and relying only on yourself after learning. Anyway, with that long ass grant, it's been an hour and 5 minutes, hour 10 minutes.
You've given me enough time to compile a wine, and right now I'm currently compiling Emacs.
You're compiling Emacs. Well,
Yep.
that was cool. At the end of this episode, I want to say thank you, Josh, for showing up. I know I'm the one who talked more than you.
It's fine. I just answered questions.
Before we go, I just want to say that this episode will be available to. How does she say that? It's available for members only. It's a member only video for the first 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks, it's gonna be public.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine as long as it makes its way out of the paywall eventually. Then I'll have
Of
a problem
course.
with it if it doesn't
No,
do that.
to be honest, I don't know how to make it a member video yet on YouTube, but I'll figure that out. But it was a good discussion, and thank you for letting me pick your brain, that 18 gigabyte brain of yours.
Yeah, thank you.
It's awesome to talk Linux, dude. It's always awesome to talk Linux. I did try once to have a podcast around Windows. It lasted 3 episodes. There was nothing to say about Windows. Anyway,
Yeah, sounds
all
about
right,
right.
all right, guys. With that being said, I'll catch you on the next episode, and let us know in the comments section what you thought. And of course, show some love. Super thanks. However you wish, you can help me continue raising the this month's allowance, basically, which is 500 euros.
Oh, it's euros now.
Well, I use euros because my bank is in Ireland.
Oh, okay.
So 500 euros. I need to raise that by the end of the month. Every month, I have 500 recurring $500 thing to be able to pay for the generator bills, electric bills, water bills, you know, to keep the project alive, because I pay for hosting as well. So all the links will be in the description down below, and let the peeps know where they can find you, Josh.
I have one true universal source of truth for all of my contacts. That contact link will never change, but the content of that page might. That is 10leej.com/stalker. Because we all know that if you're trying to find me, it's because you're a goddamn stalker.
Awesome link, dude. Awesome,
You're
awesome
welcome.
URL. I'll have it in the show in the description below. All right. Take care, y'all.
See ya.